waiting there to have to give us an item of music which is going to kick off this broadcast. So for the next 3 or so hours, stay with us and listen to to South Africans, both young and old, talking about this day back in 1976, but also over the years, how things have changed, hopefully for the better. We'll hear what South Africans' own testimonies, but I think many of us do agree that things are better today than they were back in 1976, and certainly things have improved even more significantly over the past 19 or so years, notwithstanding the challenges we continue to face, among them the problem we're talking about today, which is drugs and drug abuse. For now, though, let's cross over to Madadeni, Newcastle, where Yolisa Njamela is standing by. I'm going to ask her to give us a sense of just how things are there, the preparations, and what's going to happen over the next 3 or so hours. Yolisa, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Ria. We're coming to you live, of course, indeed, as you said it, from Madadeni, Pelandaba Stadium. This is where the official proceedings will be coming through live to everybody at home. The President Jacob Zuma, has in fact just been driven in. The official commemoration in fact started on Friday when the President went to Hector Peterson to commemorate or to honor all those who died on this day in the hands of apartheid forces. But to give you a sense of what's happening today, I'm with Mzwandile Masina of the National Task Team, the chairperson, just to give a brief overview of what we're expecting today, but not only that, to talk about the importance of this day. Mzwandile, thank you for joining us. Just give us an idea of what to expect today from the proceedings here.
Well, look, today we are expecting the President to deliver his message to the nation about the importance of this day, as we know that we are celebrating 37th year since the generation of 1976. But more importantly, it has been 19 years since this day was made an official day in the Republic of South Africa. We're expecting the President to outline some of the important things that have to do with youth development. As you'll know that we have a National Youth Development Agency the board has just been appointed. We're expecting them to be delivering some of the services to young people in the country. But more importantly, in terms of our political program, as you know that the ANC Youth League, we have already called for young people and the government of South Africa to start considering the issues of youth ministry so that issues of youth development in the country can be mainstreamed. So amongst the things that we are continuously engaging the ANC-led government is to ensure that that idea maybe in the next, as we are going towards the next elections, is beginning to see the light in the country.
And as you can see, I'm sure the viewers can see for themselves that there's a lot of activity here, and the bikers coming in, there's a lot of festivities around here. But of course, Mzwandile, this is not only about, the viewers will of course have to excuse us because the noise is quite unbearable, but we are hoping indeed that people can hear us at home. In fact, on that note, perhaps we should take it away from Mzwandile and bring it back to, let's perhaps bring it back to Vuyo, because we can hardly hear anything, and perhaps the viewers at home possibly can not hear anything as well. Vuyo, take it over for now.
Well, thanks there to Yolisa Njamela, our correspondent, who is in Newcastle at Pelindaba in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Well, if you've just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast of June 16, which is the Youth Day. And the theme for this year, of course, is working together for youth development and a drug-free South Africa. As you know, we are sitting with a drug problem. Not too long ago, as I said earlier, the community of El Dorado Park asked President Jacob Zuma to visit their community to talk about this drug problem. I did earlier in the week speak to some youngsters from El Dorado Park who are going to talk to us about some of their hopes and aspirations around schooling, but also some of their what they hope will become a drug-free El Dorado Park, which they say over the years things have gone worse, and they are hoping that their parents, their teachers, the government, everybody is going to help them deal with that problem. Scary stories there of children, women, young girls as young as 8 years old being hooked on drugs because of all these drug peddlers, other people wanting, of course, to take advantage of the women who are living in that part of the world by giving them drugs, getting them hooked so that they can do all sorts of undesirable things. Well, we'll be bringing you those interviews a little later. For now, though, we go to Soweto, where Tammy Dixon is standing by. He's going to give us a sense of what is going on there in that part of the world. That is where, of course, you will recall in 1976, that march started it all. Tammy, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Vuyo. Indeed, this is where it all started, here in Soweto, Johannesburg. Exactly on this side where I'm standing now, behind me, there's a memorial plaque of the first student who was killed on that fateful day on the 16th of June 1976. Hector Peterson Memorial is just behind me. This is where a whole range of activities are going to happen this morning to remember this day. I can tell you already, Vuyo, that a march that retraces the steps of the students who marched on that day in 1976 has already started. It has left the school where the generation of 1976 had actually started that fateful march. It has already left there, and it's retracing the steps all the way from that school, going through negotiating and navigating their way through the township of Soweto as they go through the Orlando Stadium. You remember that Orlando Stadium is where the March of 1976 was intended to reach, where they were going to announce or declare their demands and their unhappiness about the Afrikaans language that was used at the time as a medium of instruction. So that march has already started, but also this morning we have seen quite a number of activities happening here at this memorial. Groups of people coming in to lay their wreaths, to pay their last respects, and to honor these young people who died on that day. We've seen a group of PAC also coming here laying their wreaths. We've seen the military veterans also coming here doing the same. We've seen school children also coming here doing the same. So there's a lot of activities that are happening here. Everybody trying to honor the memory of the generation of 1976. But going forward, in terms of the program for the day here, we are expecting that the provincial government of Gauteng will also be part of the activities here that seek to remember this memory of young people of 1976. They will be here, the leaders of the province. I know that Premier Nomvula Mokonyane will also be here, and quite a range of other activities and other groups that will be here, but we will be able to talk about those as the day progresses. But I'd like to also remind you, Vuyo, that whenever we talk about June 1976, and one picture that always reminds us of this day, an iconic picture that was taken by a photographer at the time, Sam Zuma. It's a picture that circulates around the world, a picture that continues to tell the story of the tragedy of the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, that it was really a painful struggle that cost a lot of lives, especially the lives of young people. That picture stands behind me now as a reminder here at this memorial. I want us to take this look and this package that we've put together to remind ourselves about the photographer who went out of his way to make sure that he takes the picture that will remind the world of the atrocities that were committed at the time by the apartheid government.
Veteran photographer Sam Zuma, the man who took that famous Hector Peterson picture that has become the symbol of June 76. Well, if you've just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast of our June 16, the Youth Day commemoration day here in South Africa. Well, the main event, of course, is to this year happening in Madadeni in Newcastle in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and that's where we're going straight away just to get a sense of where things are. The president, I understand, has just arrived. Let's cross over now to Ayanda Mhlongo, who is standing by to give us a sense of what is going on in Newcastle. Ayanda, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Vuyo. And yes, we're coming back to you from the Pelendaba Stadium here in Madadeni. As you just said, yes, the president has just arrived. He's accompanied by the premier of our province, Mr. Zweli Mkhize, and the National Minister of Arts and Culture, Mr. Paul Mashatile. And I tell you, the excitement here is building at the stadium. The crowds are filling up outside. More and more people are arriving. They're coming in their numbers. The youth are really, really excited to be here, excited to be with all the youth of the country to celebrate the Youth Day. And as you can see behind me, we've got some young men and women very, very smartly dressed. And to find out who they are and where they come from, I'm joined now by Mr. Anton van Staden. He's a program director of the National Rural Youth Service Corps. Anton, thank you very much for joining us. Just very briefly, the young men and women who are here, very briefly, just to tell us who they are and where do they come from?
These youth are part of the National Rural Youth Service Corps, the NYDA, which is a program created by the Minister for Rural Development and Land Reform, Mr. Guguli Nkwinti, during September of 2010. At the moment, the program has roughly 13,000 youth from across the country into the program. It's a 4-year program. We recruit youth from rural areas where they finished school and they are unemployed, and they are then taken through different skills initiatives so that they become skilled, which will increase their employability and also assist them to become entrepreneurs. At the moment, we have trained around 5,000 youth in construction, which is the biggest program that we've done so far. And some of those youth have already succeeded in starting their own enterprises, and they are building different municipal and other facilities across the country.
And just tell us about, you said skills development, what sort of other skills, aside from those that are now venturing into construction, what else can we see these young people venturing into?
A very important part of the skills that these youth are exposed to is a 4-month training program presented by the Department of Defense. We do see that discipline is a very important aspect for youth today, and during that 4-month training program they are exposed to discipline of a very strict kind of discipline that you find in a military facility, as well as different life skills. They leave the facility with skills in leadership, in communication, self-defense, firefighting, and a whole lot of other skills that young people of today should know to be able to help them to cope better with life and also prepare them for further study at the colleges at which they are then taken once they have finalized the phase in defense.
Oh, Mrs. van Staden, thank you very much for your time, and of course some wonderful work that they're doing to empower the youth of this country. Will then go out into their communities and further continue to work and develop our communities. We're going to take things back now to Johannesburg, where my colleague Vuyo Mvogo is standing by. Over to you, Vuyo.
Thanks, Ayanda. Well, Ayanda bringing us testimonies of South Africans who are doing it for themselves, who have taken it upon themselves to change their own lives or to do something about young people in this country. 19 years into democracy, where are we as a nation? Are we doing enough for ourselves? Do we wait for the government to give us things, or do we get up and get to do things ourselves? Well, I'm joined here in the studio by our guest, Simpiwe Dana, who is, we all know, is a musician who is going to be talking to us about young people, testimonies of young people, but also some of the things that you've come across as you go around singing across South Africa, what young people are telling you about their feelings, hopes, and aspirations. Welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much for
Well,
having
I'm
me.
also joined here by Shahir Chandra, who is a producer and filmmaker who has also done a lot of work around life in South Africa and what South Africans are up to, how they see themselves, how they see their country, how they see the world. Welcome to you too.
Hi, Via. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to you as well for coming. Now, when we go back, I'll start with you, Shahir. When we go back to 1976, 37 years on, do you think South Africans do have that sense of appreciation of how far we've come as a people and as a nation to where we are today?
Look, I have to say, I think on specifically youth today, that sort of idea and those ideals, I think have kind of been lost. And that in some ways is understandable. Not that it's acceptable, but 37 years on, our youth are struggling with sort of different issues and identity and sort of, we had a very clear idea of who we were fighting for, a better South Africa back then. And now there's just so many things going on that I don't think there's a single line of thought that holds youth together. And so what happened in 76 is something that most youth have read about and they see a little bit on TV, but it's not something that's that's understood, and that struggle and that unity.
What makes you say that, though? What makes you say a lot of people, about that momentum has been lost, so people sort of have tended to?
Well, I guess in some ways, a generation that was galvanized against apartheid, everyone knew what had to be done to create this new South Africa that we have. But now, if you're a youth, sort of a young person today, there isn't that. The price of freedom in some ways came on the backs of our parents. Well, it definitely came on the backs of our parents. So, what is the struggle for youth today? Where is that identity? Drugs, there's all these things sort of that we're lost to.
Simpure, do you share Shahir's view?
I think what created the magic then was the fact that everyone had a common vision and a common dream, and today it seems that vision is lost. People don't really know. I mean, there's lots of unhappiness, but it has not been quantified into something that is tangible, that everyone can say, this is, the movement, the struggle of today. And then when those that do quantify it, it's like a scary idea, and then, it needs to be shut down, and that is the idea of economic freedom. Because from looking at our society today, how far we have come, and what the last 20 years have afforded us, the call for economic freedom is the right call. We are ready now to take that next step. And I think it's difficult for the youth to rally around this idea because everyone is quite scared of this idea.
Okay, we are indeed going to explore these issues further. Opening remarks from our panelists here in the studio, who are going to discuss with us some of the things that they have come along as they go about doing their day-to-day jobs. They're going to tell us about just how South Africans they have come across feel about Youth Day, but also about the youth in South Africa. We'll be going back to that conversation when we come back from Madadeni in Newcastle, KwaZulu-Natal, and that is where we're going to right now. And Yolisa Njamela, our correspondent, is, of course, standing by. She's going to give us an update of how things are right where she is.
Thank you very much, Vuya. Thank you very much, Vuya. We're coming to you live, of course, from Madadeni, Pelandaba Stadium. Kumnandi apha kuthwesa abantu abancinci, abantu abatsha kuyabhiyozwa nje kubhiyozelwa olusuku. Earlier, we were forced to actually take it back to the studio because of all kinds of excitement. Sure, the viewers could see for themselves that the bikers came in all their color, but we were still chatting to the NTT chairperson, Mzwandile Masena. And just to finish up that conversation, Mzwandile, thank you very much for your patience. As we were chatting, you were telling us about how the ANC Youth League program is, but today is about the youth at large. And I understand that, in fact, the theme is about drugs. Just briefly, give us a sense of why that is important.
Look, if we want to build a South Africa that belongs to young people, we must get rid of drugs in our society, because the primary focus of the ANC Youth League now is education. So we would want to take as many young people as possible to schools, because we are fighting very hard for free education for all. So if that has to happen, we'll have to make sure that, because you know that young people are the main consumers of drugs and alcohol. So we want to make sure that the struggle for drugs and alcohol is at the center of the things that we do, because we want to build South Africa now for young people, and because this South Africa belongs to all of them. So it can't be correct that we continue neglecting this particular area around drugs, whereas we should be attending to it so that young people are able to focus on the primary issues that they need to do, which in the main is education. So we think that it is important for government and society at large to focus in ensuring that we eradicate issues of drugs in the country, but more importantly, make sure that we make education free and cool for young people, because that's what we want to do in the next time.
Just one more thing, in fact, just one last thing, Mzwandile. We understand that the president went to El Dorado Park about a month ago to talk and deal with the issues of drugs in that community. But his intervention came on because of members of the society who asked him to come along. Can we expect something like that for the rest of the country?
Yes, look, we are calling on all members of society. Where you know that there are drugs, you must be able to inform community structures and police, because we want to get rid of drugs in all the places, because it's not only in Eldos where there are drugs. We will be going to the Western Cape to take back the ANC Youth League campaign there. We want to target all those areas that are affected by drugs. So it's a struggle for the whole country, because the issue of Nyaupe, Wunga, and all those things is a serious problem in our society. As I'm saying that, we want to focus now more. Young people should be spending time in issues of education, so drugs cannot be tolerated any longer.
Drugs, education, unemployment, critical issues for young people. Thank you very much for joining us. And on that note, in fact, last Friday, as we were chatting earlier, talking about how the president went to commemorate Hector Peterson in Soweto, Orlando West on Friday. Now, he went on to chat with some students at the University of Johannesburg and was emphasizing unemployment, education, and needed to get the young people on board to say, this is what's happening, this is what you should be doing to be part of the program of creating some employment or creating some excitement to make sure, rather, that the young people of this country are involved in everything. But I have Yeshen Pillay from NYDA now to talk to us about unemployment issues. Yeshen, thank you very much for joining us. First, NYDA has been criticized a lot because it seems like it is not filling the gap that it should be filling in terms of assisting young people in development of any kind.
Well, I think the perceptions out there right now are actually false perceptions. There's only so much the NYDA can do. Currently, we've got 7.5 million young people not in any form of employment, nor are they in any institution of higher learning. And one agency, such as the NYDA, can't address the needs of all those young people. So what we've said is that if we coordinate youth development matters better as the NYDA, working together with government, the private sector and civil society, we could do more. But it's not going to happen overnight. And we've set targets in terms of education and skills development programs, youth entrepreneurship programs, campaigns against alcohol and substance abuse. And if we reach those targets, we're quite confident that in time to come, the future will be brighter.
One of the problems, or rather challenges, that have been identified is that not only are young people unemployed, but some of them, or most of them, are in fact unemployable because of lack of education and other factors of life. We understand that you're supposed to be filling that gap in terms of entrepreneurship and assisting. Are you?
We are. We've set a target to actually put more than 37,000 young people through an entrepreneurship grant program, which the President will speak to today. But over and above entrepreneurship, there are issues of education and skills development. You can incentivize any employer to hire a young person, but the fact of the matter is, if a young person does not have the requisite qualifications or skills, that particular company or employer will not hire that young person. And so we are deliberately focusing on coordinating work when it comes to education and skills development. We know for a fact that most young people derive their salaries and remittances from, salaries and remittances as a form of income. And so our focus is really to say, what if we do more for education and skills development? We may actually address issues of jobs and socio-economic transformation in the long run.
On that very note, we understand that last week you were supposed to account for the monies that are outstanding, and you were supposed to be in Parliament to answer to the parliamentarians, and in fact you didn't pitch. Why is that?
It was actually a misrepresentation of the facts. The fact of the matter is, as we reported as the NYDA, we were not aware as the board that we were meant to go to Parliament and table the quarterly report. In fact, it was a responsibility of the CEO to do that. Unfortunately, he fell ill and asked the CFO to do that, to table the quarterly financial reports. We've had actually a very good relationship with Parliament. We have tabled our annual plan. All the entire Appropriations Committee welcomed the new vision, the new strategy, and we're hoping to actually move forward from this. So for us, it was a small event, being Youth Month, of course, blown out of proportion in my view, but it's just a drop in the ocean actually for us. We're brushing it off. We're focused on what we need to do. We need to address issues of jobs, issues of education, issues of skills development, and we're going to move ahead with our programs as the NYDA.
When will you account then?
Well, in fact, we've been accounting regularly to Parliament. On Friday, we've been invited to Parliament as the board. We'll be tabling the report on the annual financial, the quarterly financial statements. But moving forward, we will regularly be reporting to Parliament. And so we have very good relationships with Parliament, the Appropriations Committee, etc. Again, it was a miscommunication. It was blown out of proportion, but we're not going to be defocused by it. We'll continue to work with Parliament. We'll continue to report to Parliament. We'll continue to work with all sectors of society. And it's nothing really to be bothered about in our view.
Yeshen Pillay, NYDA, thank you very much for joining us. I'll now take it over to my colleague Ayanda Mshongo on the other side of the stadium.
Angibonga kakhulu Yolisa. Ngiyakuzwa lapho ukhuluma noYeshen Pillay ukuntuleka kwemisebenzi kubantu abasha. Ngino Brian la, umfana oqhamuka khona la, umuntu omusha oqhamuka khona la eMadadeni. And isithema sithi ukhuluma nje naye wangitshela ukuthi enene ungomunye wabantu abasha abangasebenzi njengamanje. Ake sizwe kuyena ke manje ukuthi ke ukungasebenzi kunzima kanjani kubantu abasha. Brian, ngibonga kakhulu but isikhathi sakho. Sikhulumile wangitshela ukuthi enene awusebenzi. Impilo ngiyacabanga ukuthi ayilula njengoba umsebenzi ungenawo.
Yes, impilo ayikho lula ngempela. Ngoba esikhathini esiningi kufanele ukuthi umuntu aze afunde and uthole ukuthi ama funds awekho umuntu ukuthi aze afunde, and sometimes ama results akho, like mina for one, mina ngaba ne opportunity ukuthi ngingene kwi learnership, like right now I'm also in a learnership, kodwa manje due to some problems by postponile, so kuye kwaba inkinga leyo kakhulu kimi. So right now ngihleli ekhaya enekunzima kakhulu.
Okay, Brian, thank you very much for your time. Maybe we'll be able to catch up with him throughout the day. But for now, let's now head to the podium where the Premier of the province, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, is delivering his keynote address.
Development in a drug-free South Africa. The relevance of the theme cannot be overemphasized given the challenges that are facing the youth today. Whilst the youth of 1976 tirelessly fought for liberation of this country and the creation of a democratic state, the youth of today should focus their energies on confronting and finding solutions to the challenges of poverty, unemployment, inequality, diseases, drugs, and abuse. We want to also say to you, Mr. President, we really appreciate and commend you for your swift response to the people of El Dorado Park by going there to begin the campaign in a big way to fight against drugs and substance abuse. We want to say here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we will carry on that campaign And we appreciate that you are here today to focus as well on that issue as one of the main challenges facing the youth of our country today. We have got a number of programs which we believe will add weight to your campaign in the form of the training of youth ambassadors in the same lines as what we have the NYDA group doing, where we are actually going to get youth on peer education and peer pressure to encourage them to focus on healthy lifestyles, whilst they also participate in various training programs to improve their levels of education and skills. We want to say to you, sir, that this whole week we have focused on training, conferences for youth, focusing on career guidance, initially on the maritime skills, and then of course in the past few days on what we call the future leaders. And we are going on with this program because we believe that the youth of 1976 faced a particular challenge and the youth today faces a different challenge. We would like to create a youth that is capable of taking us into the future, where we have an educated and skilled society, healthy, free of diseases, and of course, as you have said, Mr. President, a drug-free country. Siyafisa ukuba sibonge kakhulu bonke abantu abasha abaphumelele namuhla ukuze soba ingxenye yokuthola umyalezo obalulekile ovela kumongameli ukuthi insuku zango-1976 kwakuwabantu abasha abasukuma bexakwe isimo ababebhekene naso, kodwa namhlanje inselelo ezikhona ezibheka abantu abasha kudinga bona basukume. Ibasifika nje besindasendaweni yasenquthu labo besikade siyobeka khona amatshe lapho kwabulawa khona ingane intsha e-11 ngo-1993 aba-4 babo bafa bevikela inkosi yendawo kwakuyiyona yayihlaselwa kuthiwa iletha umoya omubi endaweni lapha kwaMlifi. Kodwa sifuna ukusho ukuthi akugcinanga ngo-1976, akuphelanga ngo-1976 ukuthi kube khona abantu abalimalayo. Ngaleyo ndlela ke siyafisa ukuthi sibahloniphe labo, sizokwenza konke ukuthi umlando lo ugcineke ukuze abantu abasha bazi ukuthi la sivela khona kukuphi, bakuhloniphe nala siya khona ikuphi. Siyathemba ukuthi ukuba khona kamongameli uzosiqhubuzela sonke uba sisukume siyolwa nezinkinga zedakamizwa nazo zonke inkinga ezibhekene nabantu abasha. Siyamukela mongameli kwaZulu Natal, semukela nabo bonke abakhona. Sisengathi usuku lolu lo baba ngaba usuku olunganiphatha kahle nina nonke. Happy Father's Day, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Siyabonga Khabazela. The people dealing with sound, I'm hoping you are fixing that side. Gonna complain which they can't hear. If you can please attend to that. And happy Father's Day to everybody. I'm now going to give this opportunity to the leaders of political parties to come and say a few words. Nizawukhumbula ke lesa sikhathi sami ne. Ha. You know, in Parliament you can say a lot in 2 minutes. So I trust my leaders that they will be able to give their profound speeches in that time. We're going to start with the African National Congress, Umamo Ukubai, who's our Deputy Chief Whip in the National Assembly, will be followed by APC, Mr. T. Ngubani, then Azapo, Mr. A. Ngwenya, followed by COPE, Ms. L.K. Musimani, then IFP Kuzabawu, Dr. Mchali, MF, Mr. R. Bula, PAC, Mr. Pim Pasha, UDM, Mr. N. Kwankwa, UCDP, Mr. I.S. Mfundisi. Let's start with the ANC, Mekuba.
Thank you, program directors, His Excellency President Zuma, Premier of KZN, Dr. Mkhize, executive members, all dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. I stand here on behalf of the African National Congress as we commemorate June 16, 1976, under the theme Working Together for Youth Development and Drug-Free South Africa. As we travel back in retracting the footprints of the heroic struggle of our youth, we must rapidly fight the moral degeneration that has plagued our society, the plague that has turned our nation into a nation that is rapidly killing the spirit of Ubuntu, where rape, murder, drug abuse, and alcohol abuse has characterized our society and our young people. More and more children are involved in drugs whereby they turn against their parents and their grandparents, where you find mothers and grandparents are scared even in their homes, where their own children are killing and murdering them. We call upon young people today to say we need to stand together in fighting against the alcohol and drug abuse as our president has led in our society. We need to work together as South Africans to confront these challenges and deal with these demonic things that have affected our society decisively. We are today here commemorating this day and reflecting on the achievements as achieved by our government and our society, reflecting on the development of young people in terms of skills development, education, and we are saying to young people, go out there, educate yourself, make sure that you get education, make sure that you are involved in skills development, in training, so that you are not finding yourself in wrong corners of the society. If we work together as society, we will be able to achieve more, we will be able to build a better society, build better communities. We can do this as young people if we stand up like the 76th generation and do it ourselves and not fold our arms and wait for government to do everything for us. In this, as I do not want to take much time, Program Director, I want to quote the message that ANC did during 76 August through Radio Freedom, when they said the heroic youth and masses in many parts of our country have stood against brutal massacre and defied bullets in a sustained offensive against oppression, exploitation, and racial humiliation for political and economic power. For human dignity, South Africa liberated from white minority regime. It is out of this context that we understand that young people stood up against apartheid system in 76, saying we cannot be forced to be taught in the language which we do not understand, that is not our own language, but also to say you cannot deny us our right to education. So young people today, you are urged to stand and educate yourself, make sure that you participate in our communities, make sure that you participate in social activities that will build our society. As I sit down, I want to pass a message of well wishes to President Madiba from the African National Congress. We say Tata Spilele, we wish you well. And to all the fathers, happy Father's Day. To young people, let the 76 generation's effort do not go unnoticed. Let us salute them, let us commemorate the activities, let us celebrate this activity in different ways, not by drinking and wearing school uniform, but by making sure that we participate and build our society. Amandla!
Thank you very much, Mayor Kubai from the African National Congress, Mr. Chingubani, APC.
Sanmonani. Sanmonani. Phansi ngama-drugs, phansi. Phansi ngama-drugs, phansi. Ngaphansi kwe-African People's Convention, namhlanje ngiyanibingelela ukuthi sibe yintsha ekwazile ukuthi ifinyelele kule ndawo mhlambe laba ekuyibona ngempela abasenkingeni enkulu abalitholanga ithuba lokuthi babe nathi la, kodwa ngoba thina sizowuthatha umyalezo namhlanje siwuphathe ube umphako ozodliwa yiwo yonke intsha ekhulayo. Sizohamba nawo namhlanje upresident wethu uma esesiphile sikhuthaze enye intsha ukuze enze njani nayo ihlukane nama-drugs. With all respect and discipline and the hard work of the APC, I'm here today to contribute on the commemorial to the youth of 1976 who have a vision that led to this democracy that we had today as South Africans. Today we celebrate Youth Day. As a youth today, we have a challenge to make history to repeat itself. We have a challenge that we have to remind our youth of today to stay away of drugs. Ukuze sibe nesizwe esiphilile nesinenhloso, kumele silalele uhulumeni wethu namhlanje ozamile ngayo yonke indlela ukuthi abone ukuthi isizwe la esifa khona sifa kakhuluekusetshenzisweni kwezidakamizwa, wabese ethatha enikeza ukuthi intsha ekuyiyona ecwile kakhulu kulesi simo ayizinikele yona ukuthi ilwe nalesi simo, ukulungisa sibe nesizwe esiqhakazile nekusasa elihle. Ngiyakujabulela ukuba umhlali wala eAfrika, ngiyakujabulela ukuba umAfrika. Ngokunjalo uma ujabulela uzoyijabulela nedemocracy esikuyona namhlanje, ukuzeke sakhe isizwe esiphilile, asibe intsha ezikwaziyo ukuthi iziqoqe, izinakekele, izithande futhi ngendlela yokuthi sikwazi ukuthi sibe nesizwe esihle nesiqhakazile. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you very much, Bangubani from APC. May I now call Mr. Dingwenya from Azapo.
Mphathi wohlelo, baba umengameli welizwe, ominister abakhona, oMEC abakhona, upremier weprovince ubaba uDr. Mkhize, amakhosi noNdlunkulu abakhona, nomphakathi wonke okhona, nentsha yezwe lakithi lapho ikhona, silijabulele ithuba lokuthi sizoba nomlayezo esundlulisela entsheni yezwe lakithi ngonyaka ka1913 okunyaka onama-challenges awo esizweni nasezizweni zonke, ongama-challenge omnotho, ongama-challenges futhi mhlawumbe okuwa kwesimilo entsheni. Manje ke uma sikhuluma ngosuku luka June 16, usuku lapho okufanele sonke siyisizwe sihlangane sinikeze ithemba ikakhulukazi kubantu abasha, ngoba umzabalazo kwa1976 kwawumzabalazo wokubuyisa ithemba lokuthi lo mbuso wobandlululo wawunamandla kangaka, unamajele, ubulala, unemithetho draconian. Kodwa ngo1976 it was a turning point in the struggle for liberation in our country. So usuku lolu umbuso wobandlululo from 1977 until 1994 olunye lwezinsuku ababengafuni ukuthi silukhumbule. Sasithi noma sinemihlangano yokulukhumbula babelidisrupta ngoba kwakhona umzamo owawuthi asikhohlwe amzabalazo. Sibongileke ukuthi namhlanje sizokhuluma ngodaba abanye balibheka ngathi luncane, kodwa mongameli ulibonile ukuthi ludaba olukhulu. Udaba oluthi sithine entsheni yethu. Siyinhlangano yazapho sifuna ukusho kungangabazisi ukuthi entsheni, stop giving yourselves alternatives that you don't have. Education is your only alternative. Sithi entsheni yethu akekho umuntu omusha owake wazithola ememeza ukuthi usizakele yena ngokuthatha izidakamizwa. Kodwa instead umuntu omusha othatha izidakamizwa uba nekusasa elingacacile. Manje ke siyanicela siyanincenga singobaba singomama singabaholi bemphakathi siyanicela ukuthi uma sakha lethu ezinye zezizezi ekufanele zelele ukuthi aziyeceleni ngoba phakathi kwenu kuno president no minister nama premier akusasa akho upremier ongatholakala ukuthi yena wayegxile kwizidakamizwa. Siyanimema ke izithandwa zethu bantu abasha ukuthi sisizeni niqhele kulezi zidakamizwa, sisizeni futhi niqhele ophuzeni oludakayo alcohol. Sithola intsha yethu kuwo wonke ama township mawuthi yongena intsha yethu as young as maybe 21 22 abantwana bethu sebenephuza face. Sibuhlungu ngaleso simo abantwana bethu sicela nizikhalime izimo ezifana neabuse yotshwala abantwana bethu. Ngokungabi bikho ke kwesikhathi imphathi ihlelo ngicela ukugcizelela nje iphuzu elilodwa esesilibona lenzeke emphakathini yethu mengameli iphuzu lentsha esithi yona izophila ngecrime. Lentsha isithathe le language yama gangsters o 26 28 yayifundisa abantu abethu la ngaphandle. Siyanicela ke abantu abethu ukuthi akusiyona akukho nombolo eyake yasiza umntwana ukuthi yena ukuthi therefore fanele behave ngalendlela enje. Sinicela nonke ke ukuthi ningake nicabanga ukuthi ungena ejele kune status. Sicela wonke umntwana ozokhula abe utho ezweni esabe ukwenza icrime ngoba akumnikezi isithunzi umntwana ukuthi aye ejele. Manje ke uma ngifike ekugcineni ngithanda ukugcizelela umlayezo engiucaphune lapha engomeni yeqembu imalayika ethi isikhathi seAfrika sesifikile sizonqoba. Phila mntu omsha phila.
Thank you very much, Babu Ngwenya. May I now have Musimani, CK Musimani from Cope.
Honorable President, Mr. Jacob Zuma, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Member of Parliament and Honorable Members of Legislature, respectable citizens of our country and all the formation youth present here today. As we gathered here today in commemoration of our young lions' revolutionary task accomplished, we must pay tribute to even those young people before 1976, such as Stephen Bantu Biko, Robert Sobukwe, Oliver Reginald Tambo, and many more. Honorable President of the Republic of South Africa, the Congress of the People take this opportunity to pay homage and join you in support to the speedy recovery of our international icon, former President Nelson Mandela, and prayer together with all denominations for his better health condition. The Congress of the People and its youth wing, COPE Youth Movement, used to join all other parties to remember the heroic action carried out by the class of 1976 that had brought the racist regime to its senses and realized that change was inevitable. Today's young people must emulate and be inspired by the visionary leadership of the class of 1976 in honor of their fallen young comrades who struggled for the emancipation of economic freedom for the youth of today. 37 years ago, June 16, 1976, many young people took their struggle to the street to sacrifice their lives for a noble cause so that the young people of today can have better education and highly skillfully. We remember those heroes and heroines as gallant fighters of our revolution, so that today we all celebrate this day in Newcastle with the people of KZN on a public day called Youth Day. It is time our nation as well to unity behind the youth initiatives to consolidate the economic freedom of young people. This young in particular must begin to wean itself from the absolute dependency of the welfare of the state, tender entrepreneurs and evil concept of javelin approach. There is a popular Chinese adage that say, close quote, give a man fish today, he will not be hungry for today. Teach a man to fish, he will never again be hungry. Close. As government offer assistance, there must be continuous efforts made to least teach vacations that will make even the least educated in our society employable. No society can sustain the majority its youth being without the necessary skills to become useful member of such society. With regards to education, it is not enough to reel our statistics showing an increase in the pass rate of the matriculating students. We must ask ourselves, bearing in mind that we are a nation solely lacking in technically and academically skilled professionals, what is the quality of our so-called pass rate to potential young university student exemptions entries? It is no longer a hidden truth. Our pass rates have dropped over the past few years until it sits at the moment of 32%. How can we go to sleep at night knowing that we are doing the future generations such as divisive while betraying their effort of a better education and in our disguise? An existing problem wherein the government has been unable to produce quality students since the uprising of 1976. We must remember that our students live in global village where they are expected to compete internationally. But with 32% as standard, this is a set that we have allowed our children to accept mediocrity as a standard. Congress of the People is concerned that drugs are undermining the future of our youth. The El Dorado Park, recently visited by our Honorable President Zuma, is just one of the many areas where communities are unable to deal with their children's drug addiction. We must establish a campaign and program with youth formation on a theme of working together for youth development towards a drug-free South Africa. At time, we must be able to demonstrate our intention towards the youth economic investment. On such occasion, we show a case of project that touch the lives of our youth and educational towards the development programs. As I conclude, we hope that the long-drawn youth resolution of the ruling party will be realized to its final implementation to avoid a weak youth information. I beg your pardon, a weak youth formation. Forward to united action of patriotic young revolutionaries. Amandla, aluta continua. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Memusimani. May I now call Dr. Mchalif from the Inkatha Freedom Party. SABC, you are right with the mics? They are fine. Okay.
Msholos, Ngamala. Message from Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, President of the Inkatha Freedom Party, read on his behalf by Dr. LPHM Mchali on the occasion of the National Youth Celebrations. Today we celebrate National Youth Day. It is my privilege to share this day with you on behalf of the IFP and its president, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. As I look across this sports ground, I see young men and women who are already leaders because of the choices you are making for yourself and your future. We meet quite intentionally on June 16, the commemoration of a student uprising that took place in Soweto in 1976. At the time, the whole system of Bantu education was marked by overcrowded classrooms, inadequately trained teachers, appalling insignificant funding, ramshackle school buildings, and separate schools and universities. It was a time bomb for social discontent. There was a profound imbalance in government's expenditure on education for white children and black children. Government was spending about 144 rand per child on whites and only 12 rand 46 on blacks. But young students didn't rise in protest over the unfairness of it alone. They were protesting because they knew that by withholding education, government was withholding their future. Young people understood this. They sensed the extent of the consequences for their own lives beyond the immediate injustice. Today, as we meet on this significant day, there's a haunting sense of history repeating itself. Today, we cannot fail to recognize that our country is in crisis and the future is all but secure. South Africa grapples with entrenched problems and many of our people are suffering. But those who suffer by far the most are our youth. While the unemployment rate in South Africa is 25%, unemployment among young people is 49%. While many young people want to work, only half of them can find a job. A university education is expensive and does not hold the promise of work. You are told you need experience to get a job, but you can't get experience unless you work. The government's youth wage subsidy has been stalled by the ANC's alliance partner. Buying property and owning a house is an impossible dream. Debt is rising while the cost of living keeps going up. HIV and AIDS are an ever-present concern. Personal safety is uncertain. Stress is high. Alcohol and drugs are a temptation. There is not enough to do, not enough to eat, not enough to inspire hope. My generation grew up in a country where political freedom was denied, movement was restricted, dignity was trampled, and education was poor. Yet somehow I feel that the battle we are facing today as young people in South Africa is incomparable. After all, you live in a country that is politically free and a world that is moving forward. You are continually told you are a free generation, but you are not truly free to work when there are no jobs to be found, or truly free to go anywhere where you can afford transport, or truly free to learn when the education system is failing. It is a fact that our education system ranks as one of the poorest on the African continent and in the world. Although government is spending significant amounts on education, although education is a universal right enshrined in our democratic constitution, there are still schools unfit for human use, where children get sick because of dilapidated toilet facilities, leaking roofs and broken windows. Almost 20 years into democracy, there are still many schools in South Africa without the necessary facilities like libraries, laboratories, and computer rooms. Others don't even have books or stationery. we are faced once again with a time bomb for social discontent. Education is indeed a fundamental human right, and it is indeed threatened in South Africa. The IFP understands that healing our ailing education system is about protecting this fundamental human right, which is under threat in this generation, the right to quality education. We also know that it is about giving young South Africans a chance in a very difficult world. There is nothing more important to the IFP than seeing this generation become freer, healthier, and happier than the generation before. That is genuine progress. In the face of all the challenges and hardships, I urge you not to become discouraged. You are what South Africa needs. You are our history makers and our destiny shapers. You are the heartbeat of our country. As the young of today, lead from the front in shaping the South Africa you desire. The IFP supports you in this quest. I thank you.
Siyabonga Babumtshali. May I now call Dr. Pasha from the PAC.
Thank you, Program Director. On behalf of PAC President, Comrade Letlapa Mphahlele, whom I represent today, I extend my sincere greetings, all protocols observed. The theme for this event is very interesting. But the question remains that this government really working towards youth development and drug-free country as the theme suggests? The answer is big no. President Zuma, your government cannot claim to work for youth development when you deny young people access to free quality education. Development of a person does not come naturally. It takes knowledge for one to be developed. The youth need to be educated. We must be educated on how to refine minerals into final products, since we are a mineral-rich country. We don't need this current system that teaches us how many bones a frog has. We don't need this current system that teaches us to be job seekers. You cannot speak about development when you prepare the youth to be slaves for the capitalists. We cannot clarify a system that makes elites richer at the expense of the majority of young people. We need education that responds to the developmental needs of our country. Reposition and ownership of land by African youth will reduce poverty and economically empower youth, and this will increase education and technical skills. Landless causes crime and confusion lead to drug abuse. If we want to win the struggle against youth underdevelopment and drug abuse, we must repossess our land. The Bible teaches us that when Moses released Israelites from Egypt to Canaan, he promised them land. He didn't promise them child grants, not tender, not houses. Stop gambling at the expense of the lives of the young people. Take the youth to Canaan. We need our land back. We need better education. Even if you change NYDA, which is useless and hopeless, to youth ministry, you will never succeed in this battle for as long as you don't repossess land. I know liberals and reactionary present here will not agree with us on reposition of land. They forget that people don't work in the air. They forget that development don't happen in the air. They forget that houses are not built in the air unless they are telling us that this event is held in the air. If you give the African youth what rightfully theirs, the problem of drug abuse will automatically fade away. When a person complicates from a chronic disease, you don't treat the complication and leave the disease. Drug abuse by the youth is a complication. Lastly, the PSC President, Comrade Litlapam Patlele, wished Bafana all the best in their encounter against Ethiopia today. CIA, Brazil, CIA, Engos.
Pasha. I have two last speakers. Mr. Nkwankwa from UDM will be followed by Mr. Mfundisi from UCDP, then we'll be done with political parties.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I think before I do the greeting, someone from sister opposition parties must provide leadership on this matter. It is important, like we were reminded last time, that we must not abuse this platform as opposition parties because it's about nation building. I think maybe it will make more sense when it actually comes from a fellow opposition party. Program Director, Mr. President, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, leaders of political parties, all protocol observed, fellow South Africans. Much has been achieved in the development of young people since the advent of democracy in 1994. However, it should concern us that today we commemorate the 37th anniversary of June 16, 1976, against the backdrop of extraordinarily high levels of youth unemployment in South Africa. According to the latest labor force survey from Statistics South Africa, unemployment for the people between the ages of 15 to 34 currently stands at 70.7%. This means that not only do young people still occupy the periphery of economic activity, but the problem of unemployment in South Africa appears to be one of youth unemployment. This is a ticking time bomb which threatens to worsen the alarming levels of political instability in South Africa. At the heart of this youth unemployment problem is the poor quality of our education system, which is failing to equip youth with basic skills and at times with the skills that the South African economy requires. Furthermore, as the theme suggests, South Africa is also battling with high prevalence of alcohol and drug abuse among the youth. We have to leave no stone unturned in the fight against alcohol and drug abuse. Program Director, another hindrance to youth development is that in the new South Africa, political connectivity determines one's altitude. For many young people, coming from the wrong side of the political spectrum is increasingly becoming a fixed impediment to individual success. While this occurs, those who enjoy political connectivity become overnight millionaires. The danger of breaking the important link between effort and reward is that we send a wrong message to young people that they can take the escalators to success. No winning nation can be built on this formula. Mr. President, quite often people who are tasked with youth development institutions publicly proclaim commitment to youth development while privately practicing unrestrained extraction of private wealth from the public purse. Mr. President, I wish I could wave a magic wand so that we can get rid of these problems, but unfortunately we cannot. Nor do we have the time to develop another plan, because South Africa has an abundance of plans. Our only limitation as a nation is that we do not implement them enough. To turn the situation around, we require bold and decisive leadership from all sectors of society to implement the plans we have developed thus far. As failure to do this will portray us as a nation that lacks the moral resolve to tackle its challenges. We have to improve the quality of our education to ensure that our young people are both employable and capable of becoming employment creators rather than employment seekers. We have to re-establish the link between effort and reward and root out corruption and maladministration in our society. Fellow South Africans, we have to work hard to ensure that we put selfless service to the people above all else. Adam Smith puts this appositely in his book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, when he says, and I quote, when the happiness or the misery of others depends in any respect upon our conduct, we dare not, as self-love might suggest to us, prefer the interest of one to that of many, end quote. Providing this selfless leadership requires that we make important choices as a nation. Former President of the United States of America, J.F. Kennedy, once summarized these choices concisely in one of his political speeches in the 1960s, 50s, when he said, and I quote, that the American people have a choice to make, a choice between national greatness and national decline, between the public interest and private comfort. He continued and said, all mankind awaits our decision. We cannot fail their trust. We cannot fail to try, end quote. More than 50 years later, South Africa finds itself at this crossroad. Rephrasing the words of former J.F. Kennedy, I say that the peoples of Africa and the world wait upon our decision. We cannot fail their trust, nor can we fail to try. Before I sit down, nathi si-United Democratic Movement, sifuna ukuthi makaphile uTata uMadiba, sithi phila yemyem, ngolomsila, Madiba indonga, vela bembenzela. Siyabulela.
What you can't hear there? Anizwa. Okay, can the sound people please increase the volume? Please increase the volume. May I now have Babu Mfundisi, UCDP.
Thank you, Program Directors, His Excellency the President, the Premier of the Province, Dr. Mkhize, colleagues representing the different parties, and ladies and gentlemen. On the morning of June 16, 1976, following months of frustration, thousands of African school children in Soweto walked to Orlando Stadium to protest against the then regime, which took as a matter of fact that all people have to be taught in the way they wanted them to. Those young people felt that enough was enough, and that much and nothing further. My party, the United Christian Democratic Party, has adopted the slogan, stand up, speak out, and take risks if necessary. The students stood up against authority, spoke out against injustice of being forced to learn in another foreign language, and in the process risked their lives, further education, and some even had to skip borders, all these in their quest to set the record straight. It is very interesting that that wave and subsequent ones were mounted by people while as sober as judges. They had not taken any intoxicants, let alone drugs. They all wore their school uniforms, and they resolved not to be fed something they did not like, Afrikaans in this case. The youths on whose account we are gathered here today walked around in solidarity, boys and girls moving as brothers and sisters. Girls never feared that any of the young men in the march could turn against them and rape them. It is unfortunate that nowadays incidents of sibling brothers raping sibling sisters are common. Such conduct will stunt whatever development we are dreaming of, and this has to be avoided. Disrespect for adults is a common occurrence these days. I need to advise the young men and women here today and all over the world. You never know with whom and where you will end up in life. As a young man, you may end up getting married in the family you once despised. The same goes for the young women. You may end up being umakoti of the mother or woman you once told to get off. It may not end there. Belonging to this or that other party does not give you the license to insult people right, hook, and center. And please, let us remember that in the lendlela sihambayo empilweni sizawudibana phambili ngenye imini. The way ahead in this country needs people who will take up its development to a higher level. This country will need skilled people ad infinitum. If young people of today do not live up to expectations, the future will not be guaranteed. As young people, you need to have the world at your feet, stand firm, and walk tall. We wish to call on all the young men to desist from raping unsuspecting women and people old enough to be their grandmothers or great-grandmothers no harm. It is as immoral as it is unacceptable in society. Everyone is the architect of his fortune. Let us explore all available resources to create a fortune for ourselves. We should move from being consumers to being producers. We should move from being perpetual employees to become employers. We should move from being job seekers to being creators of jobs. All these are possible taking into account the refashioned National Youth Development Agency, the opportunities offered by the DTI, and the courses offered by further education colleges, which are tailored to have graduates ready for the employment in the world. The constant refrain by President Zuma in emphasizing the importance of education has to be commended. Take care and do not allow the opportunity to go past unexploited. Stand up and follow knowledge like a sinking star beyond the utmost bounds of human thought. You will rejoice for better days to come. Let us, at this instance, wish Bafana Bafana well as they meet Ethiopia this afternoon. Diabule.
Siyabonga bamfundisi. Let me thank all the leaders of the political parties for their messages and for cooperating with us within this limited time. I'm going to make a slight adjustment to the program. Instead of calling Bui and Kwamashu Arts Center now, I'll call them a bit later. I want to now give this opportunity to Minister Collins Shabani to introduce the new board of the NYDA. And once he's done with that, immediately welcome the President to address the nation. I'll want to make sure that at least by 20 to 1 the President is speaking. We will then take all the performances afterwards. The bikers, I'm told you want to introduce the President, so once Minister Chaban is done and the President is about to come to the podium, you can do your thing, but no more than 2 minutes. Thank you very much, Minister.
You can see the Program Director, Your Excellency, Honorable President, Honorable Premier, baetapele ba mokgatlo e fapanang ya dipolotiki, mayors, MECs, and members of the provincial legislatures, leaders of young people. I have been requested to do 2 things. Firstly, to introduce members of the NYDA, and secondly, to call on the bikers to do what they want to do. Zino nukorebuka each finger mchimiza mushumu undi divaze baranga panda ba NYDA. The board of the NYDA was appointed by the President some few months ago. I therefore take this opportunity to call on stage the chairperson of the board, Mr. Yashin Pillay, the Deputy Chairperson, Mr. Kenny Murolong, additional member of the board, Ms. Marupeng Ramukhope, another board member, Ms. Ayanda Makaula, another board member, Mr. Mutupi Mudiva, another board member, Ms. Nyaleng Potluan. She's still coming from that side. This is the new board of the NYDA, which is going to help young people to achieve their dreams, assist them to access services from government.
Well, if you've just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast of the June 16 commemoration ceremony taking place in Madadeni in Newcastle in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. This year's theme, working together for youth development and a drug-free South Africa. Well, we'll be going back to Madadeni, where President Jacob Zuma will be delivering that keynote address in a short while. For now, though, Shahir Chandra and Simpiwa Dana are our studio guests. I just want us to talk now. We've had the politicians from all these political parties talking about issues of like rape, alcohol abuse, unemployment, how we are not short of plans as a country, but the challenge being implementation. If from where you are sitting, being a filmmaker, documenting the life and history of this country of ours, if you were to advise politicians and young people about how to move forward, the things we need to do beyond this point, what would you say to them?
Well, I think we need to start speaking to the youth on their level, because it feels to me that, you know, we need a realistic approach to what the youth are dealing with, and as opposed to always looking back and you're trying to get, for example, a 20-year-old to understand 1976, and you've got to do that in ways that we can connect with that mind and that sort of frame of mind where that young person is. Because, you know, watching the broadcast, I just feel like we're basically remembering what happened, but we're not asking the youth to understand it and not even trying to connect with them. And that's the first problem. How do you speak to the youth if you don't speak to them on their level?
Their own language.
You know, because they're just going to switch off. You may sit in front of the television, but they're not actually going to connect with what's being said. So from politicians and all the way down, we need to start speaking to the youth on their level. And education is our tool. And if we ignore education, then we're never going to get through to the youth.
Sampio?
Well, I mean, like he said, the issue of education is one of the most important things that we need to deal with. You know, you can almost say that the youth of '76 were dealing with this issue, and now, you know, we are still dealing with the same issue. And then on the issue of broken societies, like he was saying again, you can say that all you want to the youth. You know, for me, there are other ways to deal with broken societies, you know, where the youth themselves will stand up and say, I actually want to make something of my life, you know, because they can see that it's possible. You know, their environment also allows them. You know, if we are having issues with drugs and the youth, telling them to stop doing drugs is not going to fix anything. You know, we need to understand.
What, in your view, will get our youth to take the drug problem, which is the theme for this year's June 16 commemoration, to take it seriously? What for you, what would, if you had an opportunity to be like those politicians, stand on that platform or podium and talk to the youth of today, what would you say to them?
The thing is that our youth need hope, you know? So it's less about what I would say, but more about how we fix our communities so our youth believe that they have a future. That's it.
I completely agree. I think that, you know, someone said jokingly, if you were unemployed, sitting at home, without an idea of where you would work and what life you could build, wouldn't you be drinking, etc.? You know, and it was a joke, but it sort of stuck with me, and I just thought, exactly what Simpio said, we need to give the youth hope and sort of build a community and a society again on truth and trust. And you know, I don't think we believe in our politicians. I don't think we believe in our structures anymore. And so there's a bunch of individuals trying to look after themselves and losing their way, whereas we need to build community again. And we need to do that with strong structures and strong leadership.
But if you listen, I mean, if you listen to I had interviews this week with school kids, with ministers, a lot of politicians. We just listened to them. They all seem to be saying the right things in many instances. Yes, I get your point, that they are not speaking to the youth, certainly not in the language that the youth may perhaps or should be spoken to. But by and large, these are things that are...
I mean, I guess living in a politically correct society that we have been living in for the past 20 years, you know, people know what is expected of them to say, so they will say what is expected of them to say.
Directors of the program, Honorable Premier of KwaZulu-Natal Province, Dr. Mkhize, Honorable Ministers, Minister Mashatile of Arts and Culture, and Minister Collins Chaban, Minister of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation in the Presidency, Deputy Ministers, MECs, and mayors, representatives of the political parties, members of the National Parliament who are here, and members of the provincial legislatures, the NYDA chairperson, Mr. Pillay, and the members of the board, fellow South Africans, Sanbonani, Molweni, good morning, Dumelang, to the youth of South Africa in every corner of our country. Today, the nation recalls the events of 16 June 1976 in Soweto and in other places, and remembers the heroism of our young people who took on the might of the apartheid state in pursuit of freedom, equality, and human rights. We commemorate National Youth Day under the theme, Working Together for Youth Development and a Drug-Free South Africa. The theme indicates that the challenge facing the youth during this era of freedom and democracy is different to that of the youth before 1994. We pay tribute to the youth of 1976 who took on the might of the apartheid state, and also remember Hector Peterson, who became a symbol of the student uprising and quest for freedom and a better life. The bravery of our youth during those difficult times pushed our country closer to freedom and democracy, which we finally achieved in 1994. We also pay a fitting tribute to generations of youth in the past decades. Namhlanje sikhumbula ubuqhawe bentsha yaseSoweto kanye nasezindaweni eziningi eMzansi neAfrika. Izingane nentsha zaqoma ukufa sezikhathele incindezelo. Lesi sibindi nobuqhawe nokuthanda izwe labo kangaka siyohlala sikukhumbula njalo. Kungumlando omuhle kakhulu ezweni lethu ukuthi intsha yadlala indima ebalulekile emzabalazweni wenkululeko yakithi. Compatriots, in a few months, we will be celebrating 20 years of freedom. We will pause and take stock of the road we traveled since the 1994 democratic breakthrough. We have come a long way since 1976. South Africa has changed considerably for the better. We thank the youth of their sterling contribution to both freedom and the reconstruction of their country. Through the collective efforts of the 1976 generation of youth, we saw the doors of learning and culture being opened after 1994. We witnessed the democratic government changing the draconian laws that had made the lives of the majority of our youth miserable in their own country, South Africa. During the first 10 years of democracy alone, 789 laws or amendments were made at reconfiguring South African society. And indeed, these were approved by our democratic parliament. The dismantling of the legal framework of apartheid and transformation of many state institutions has led to the visible improvement on the socio-economic conditions of millions of people, including the youth. We prioritize youth development with good reason in this country. Census 2011 indicated that South Africa is a youthful country. More than 50% of the population is young people under 39 years of age. Census 2011 told us that for the next 20 years, South Africa will have over 14 million young people between the ages of 15 and 29. The number will peak in 2021, reaching 15.1 million. Given the youthfulness of the population, we need to provide a good quality education and skills. Steady progress is being made, but more must still be done. The percentage of the population who completed a higher education, which includes certificates, diplomas above grade 12, as well as degrees and postgraduate qualifications, increased from 7.1% in 1996 to 8.4% in 2001, and slightly increased in 2011 to 12.1%. The proportion of persons who completed a secondary education or higher education increased from 23.4% in 1996 to 40% to 40.5% in 2011. This figure shows improvement, but it is still far from what we want for our country. Census 2011 indicated as well that the youth from the bulk of the working age population who are not working. In fact, 65% of our black youth is unemployed. The latest studies also show that 72% of South Africa's unemployed are younger than 34. Our education and development programs are designed to correct these challenges. At the basic education level, we are focusing on improving access to schooling and to improve the learning conditions. It is for this reason that we have more than 8 million children in no-fee school. Over 8 million children receiving nutritious meals at school, and more than 800,000 being enrolled in grade R compared to about 300,000 just a few years ago. The building and refurbishment of schools is continuing to eradicate mud schools and other inappropriate structures. We have prioritized access to higher education, especially technical and vocational education, to expand the country's skills base. We are happy, in particular, with the increase in enrollments at FET colleges. For the 2012 academic year, we had set a target of 550,000 student enrollments at further education and training colleges. We exceeded this target, and colleges enrolled a total of 657,690 students. This represented an increase of 54% over the preceding year. Government has allocated 17.4 billion rand to ensure that FET college enrollments continue to increase. This money will be spent on building and improving FET college infrastructure. We exceeded our targets in FET financial assistance as well. In 2012, government provided financial assistance through the National Student Financial Aid Scheme to 187,497 FET college students. The plan had been to assist 180,826 students for that year. We are encouraged that our young people understand the importance of education and skills development. They are following in the footsteps of the children and youth of 1976 who prioritized quality education. Beyond education, we are also investing in youth employment. It is for this reason that a landmark youth employment accord was signed by government, business, labor, and youth organizations from all political persuasions on the 18th April 2013. We urge the youth to contribute to implementing the accord, which must be done in the spirit of the country's socio-economic blueprint, the National Development Plan. The National Development Plan singles out young people as being key to the development of the country. It highlights that South Africa's youthful population represents an opportunity to boost economic growth, increase employment, and reduce poverty. The plan also proposes the strengthening of youth service programs and the introduction of new community-based initiatives to offer young people like skills training and entrepreneurship training. The implementation of the National Development Plan and the Youth Accord will take into account the progress made to date in promoting youth development. Government has specifically put measures in place to boost labor absorption among young people and to create an environment for economic growth that supports youth development over the long term. I will mention just a few. Scores of young people from 3,300 rural wards across the country are enrolled in various training programs under the National Rural Youth Service Corps, the ones you saw drilling here. The Rural Development and Land Reform, which runs the training program, is also planning to create non-rural youth hubs per province, including in the 23rd poorest districts in the country. We have directed the expanded public works program, which provides temporary work opportunities for the unemployed, to insist that 40% of people employed on these projects be young people. The new Small Enterprise Funding Agency, formed after merging small business financing institutions, will make 1.7 billion rand available over the next 5 years for youth enterprises, with a target of 220 million rand in this financial year. In addition, the Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa has announced a 1 billion rand youth fund to provide concessional lending to youth-owned enterprises that create jobs. We have put all these programs in place, and will also continue to improve access to education, basic services, to improve the quality of life of young people. Compatriots, having mentioned the work being done to improve the lives of our youth, we must bear in mind that the youth of today faces a different struggle to that of 1976 youth. What is common in the struggles of these two generations is the building of a better life for all. This was a clear call to the youth that fight against apartheid was to fight for a better life. The youth of 1976 were made to be not full citizens of this country. They were made to be pariahs in their motherland and could not influence or participate in decision-making in their own country. The youth is now empowered by the Constitution and the laws of the land to participate fully in building a better life. The fight for a better life for all is an integral part of our fight against poverty, unemployment, and inequality. A silent point in this struggle for a better life is the fight against drugs and substance abuse, the fight against crime and gangsterism, the fight against child and women abuse, the fight against teenage pregnancy and truancy, as well as the fight against mob justice and xenophobia. Thus, our special message to the youth of the Republic today is that you must become an integral part of the struggle against all these cancers that are painfully eating away our society. Alcohol and drug abuse, in particular, are slowly eating into the social fiber of our communities. We must fight the scourge with the same vigor that we fought apartheid with, and the zest that is displayed in our successful fight against HIV and AIDS today. Youth have become slaves of drugs such as nyaope, wunga, tik, and kuba, amongst others. Others are slaves of alcohol abuse. According to the second South African National Youth Risk Behavior Survey, 2008, the Western Cape, Gauteng, Free State, and the Northwest reported the highest alcohol consumption rates by the youth. Limpopo and the Western Cape were the only provinces where more female learners than male learners had used alcohol in their lifetime. Alcohol abuse among young people is usually a gateway to the use of harmful substances. Drug and substance abuse have serious implications for the millions of citizens because they contribute to crime, gangsterism, domestic violence, family dysfunction, and other forms of social problems. Thus, as government, we must respond more vociferously than ever to the cries of the youth of El Dorado Park, Mabopane, Westbury, Mamelodi, and other areas who are facing the onslaught of drugs. We have heard the cries of the youth of Guguletu and Mitchell's Plain, Valhalla Park against crime and gangsterism. The youth of Port Elizabeth and Diepsloot must be supported in their fight against mob justice and xenophobia. We've heard the cries of the youth of DR and Pampistad in the Northern Cape in their effort to root out alcohol abuse and fetal alcohol syndrome and many other social ills. Studies, particularly among rural populations and those associated with wine farms in the Western Cape, have demonstrated that 5% of alcohol entry children have fetal alcohol syndrome disorders. In Diepsloot, Lenasia, South, Westbury, and Soweto, the rate of fetal alcohol syndrome disorder is 2.6% of that population. The situation is extreme in two populations in the Northern Cape province, DR and Uppington, where the prevalence is 7%. As we speak today, many parents are in pain as they watch their children deteriorating and their lives being destroyed by drugs and alcohol abuse. I visited El Dorado Park recently and listened to horrific tales of young people who rob their own families in order to obtain money for drugs. I've heard tales of children as young as 8 years old who are now addicted to drugs. I've heard tales of young girls who are molested in drug dens or lolly lounges. Siyazizwa izikhalo zabazali ezweni lonke bethi izingane zibulawa izidakamizwa kanti ezinye zizigqila zotshwala, ezinye zintshontsha imali nezimpahla emakhaya ukuze zithenge ohunga, nyaope, nezinye izidakamizwa. Sithi akufanele sivumele abadayisi bezidakamizwa babulale ikusasa lezingane zethu. Nekusasa lezwe lethu. Masibambisaneni silwe nalenkinga ebhekene nesizwe sakithi. Kubalulekile ukuthi sihlangane sonke sibambisane. Uma singathathi izikhali zethu silwe nalokho sizophela isizwe. Siyaphela isizwe. Sibulawa idakamizwa. Kulomkhankaso esiuqalile asisukume sonke kuba umkhankaso wesizwe sonke. We must today declare drug and alcohol abuse as the enemies of our freedom and democracy. We must declare drug traffickers and those who run illegal alcohol outlets that sell alcohol to our children the enemies of our freedom. They should be ashamed of running businesses that destroy children, the youth, and many families. Government and its partners are implementing the Anti-Substance National Plan of Action. Communities must play an active role in ensuring success of this campaign. We need to work with law enforcement agencies to ensure that such people are brought to book. We must report them so that we can stop them from destroying our young people and our future. The plan focuses on enabling policy and legislation, the reduction of supply and demand of drugs, as well as treatment and rehabilitation of addicts. Already, there are 215 local drug action committees around the country that are assisting communities manage their own preventative work at grassroots level. The SA Police Service plays a key role in the fight against drugs and substance alcohol abuse. We have seen the impact of visible policing in Eldorado Park, where they moved in to clean up the community. Information provided by the community is of crucial importance, and partnership initiatives like Crime Line play to encourage community members to provide information to our police service. Since crime analysis conducted by SABC at all levels indicates a clear link between alcohol abuse and violent crime, crime combating and prevention operations focus especially on the supply of alcohol in addition to illegal drugs. During the past financial year, police conducted a total of 394,379 liquor compliance inspections were conducted. A total of 74,547 illegal liquor traders were charged and closed down last year. Designated police officials have been appointed at police stations and are responsible to address the transgressions of liquor legislation. Some of the illegal outlets are located near schools, which has a serious effect on luring children to drink alcohol at a young age. The police also run a Safe Schools program focusing on preventing drugs, crime, and violence in primary and secondary schools. The SABC also conducts research, conducts searches, and seizure operations, looking for drugs and dangerous weapons in partnership with safe school committees located in schools and school governing bodies, in addition to the work of the police or the Department of Social Development, Health, and others. Youth and parents must play their part. The youth must say no to drugs and all illegal substances and must seek help. The youth should support their peers who are trapped in alcohol and drug abuse. The youth should assist the police to bring to book the drug traffickers who destroy the lives of children. The youth must join the fight against women and child abuse and violence against women in general. The new scourge of sexual violence against women and girls must stop. Indeed, our youth has a lot of work to do as part of nation building. Fellow South Africans, in addition to this priority of promoting healthy lifestyles for young people, we still expect the youth to raise sharply and constructively issues pertaining to education and economic participation on all fronts, including in government and society, as well as consolidate the gains of the 1994 democratic breakthrough. The youth of South Africa have a bright future, but that depends on what they plow today. The National Youth Development Agency has been tasked with the responsibility of assisting the youth to find their true potential. The new board of the NYDA, led by Chairperson Yashin Pillay, has reduced the strategic areas of the NYDA by 50% in order to become more focused. Attention will now be paid to economic participation, education and skills development, policy and research, health and well-being, as well as governance and administration. To ensure the effectiveness of the agency, the Presidency is facilitating amendment of the NYDA Act to enable much more focused interventions. It is also expected that the NYDA will soon start with the process of reviewing the national youth policy, because the term of the current policy is coming to an end in 2014. This process should be used as an opportunity to take stock of the impact of various interventions that have been implemented to date. We thank the previous NYDA board members for their contribution to the organization. In order to intensify the voice of young people, the presidency is also establishing a presidential youth working group, a youth sector stakeholder platform to be used to directly engage key relevant stakeholders in the youth development space. The youth of the Republic are inheriting the legacy of Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Bram Fisher, Phyllis Naidu, Charlotte Maxeke, and a host of other stalwarts. Therefore, they must hold the Rainbow Nation flag high. They must sing the country's national anthem with pride, in the knowledge that South Africa belongs to them and that the future belongs to them all. As youth, your task is learn, learn, and learn. Learn from the lives of those before you, and most important of all, to learn the skills that are necessary to build a winning nation and a non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic South Africa. Your task is to contribute to building a prosperous South Africa, free of crime, drugs, and substance abuse, and free of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. The task of the 1976 youth and other generations before 1994 was to struggle to liberate this country. They understood their task, that theirs was to work hard, sacrifice, in order to free South Africa, to bring about democracy, to bring about free economy, to bring about everything that is embraced in our democracy and freedom. They sacrificed, indeed at the end, they succeeded to accomplish their task of freeing South Africa. Your task today, your task as the youth today, is to help us to build a truly caring society. It is absolutely important that our youth must identify specific key things that they need to focus on, so that they play their role, so that they are able to bring South Africa where we want it to be, so that they are able to shape today their future. That is the mission from which must emerge new heroes and heroines of today, of building South Africa. Because those who fought to liberate, they emerged at their time. We want heroes who are going to merge today to help take South Africa to a high trajectory. We must remember as we work, the class of our youth of the early 40s that took the struggle up to the point of delivery. If I talk about this, if you think about Tambo Sisulu Mandela, from the early 40s, they participated in the struggle, shaped the circumstances, worked on strategies and tactics, finally delivered freedom in 1994. You have that challenge as the youth. You must identify and carve your own things that you need to do, that you must concentrate on. And one of these that you don't even need to think about is education. Education, education, education. There is no country in the world that can succeed without education. Bear in mind that during the oppression, apartheid, and colonialism, education was used as an instrument to subjugate us. Let us use it today to further liberate ourselves. So education is a key, is one thing. Yours is to go to school, learn the skills, be ready to develop South Africa. We don't want to see young people loitering around during the school time. We don't. If this persists, we are going to take some action. We don't want to see children walking around during the school time. That's not contributing to South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, let me invite you all to keep Madiba in our thoughts and prayers, as you are aware that President Nelson Mandela is still in hospital in Pretoria. We must remember that he's one of those who played his part and delivered freedom. Perhaps played the most prominent part. We are grateful that he continues to get better. I invite you to join me today in wishing Madiba a very happy Father's Day. We love him and know that he loves us too. I wish all our youth a successful and productive National Youth Day, including the young ones in the squad, Bafana Bafana, to come back with a victory today. May God bless the youth. May God bless South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the President.
President Jacob Zuma delivering this year's June 16 keynote address under the theme, Working Together for Youth Development and a Drug-Free South Africa. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and after the break, we're going to tease some of those issues. We're going to be speaking to young South Africans who will be talking about their own experiences, how they're dealing with the drug problem, but also how they hope that you and them can work together to try and deal with this scourge. That's all coming up after this ad break. Earlier, Yolisa speaking to the chairperson of the NYDA about that matter. He, of course, had his explanation there. But right now, Yolisa is going to speak to the Deputy Minister himself. It's over to you, Yolisa.
Thank you very much. We are from a very noisy stadium of Madadeni, KwaZulu-Natal. The president has just left the stadium from here, but the festivities continue throughout. As Vio just mentioned, we're now going to speak to Untate Obed Babela, who is the one who is responsible for youth affairs in the presidency. Untate Babela, thank you very much for joining us today. As we were chatting earlier on, I was saying to you that for many years, we've had to deal with the scourge of alcohol abuse and drug abuse among young people. Why in particular this year, June 16, the presidency chose to deal with this? Could it have been triggered by the concern that emanated from El Dorado Park?
Well, let me first say happy Youth Month to all the young people in the country, and happy Father's Day for the young fathers also, who are young people. Indeed, the issue of the drugs and alcohol is becoming a serious problem in the society. And the president then decided that one of the themes that we can kickstart the Youth Month and continue with the activities and the program is to focus all our attention on reducing the supply and then arresting all the kingpins and the drug pushers and ensuring that we save our nation and our future, which is in the young people, from drowning in alcohol and also from being consumed by the drugs that are now easily available also. Nyaope is going at 15 rand. From 30 rand now the price has gone down to 15 rand. And you see these people stealing in the fridge, they steal any clothes in the house, they steal any available items in the house. They now even steal taps that were delivered in the townships. They even steal gates now at people's houses because it's a steal that they can take to the scrapyard just to get the 15 rand that they can then buy Nyaope, which is a mixture of concoction. And then we then felt therefore that from today onwards, celebrating Youth Month, the issue of alcohol and the drugs is going to be the message that will mobilize communities, mobilize society, mobilize parents, mobilize everybody, civil society organizations, media, and say, what is it that we can do to save this nation? Because tomorrow, these young people will be responsible adults, and if they got addicted, it means the future is doomed for the nation.
The president mentioned a few areas that are more hard hit than the others. Are we to expect high-profile visits such as the one that in Johannesburg, where he went to El Dorado Park to deal with these issues? We're expecting that in other areas as well?
Definitely, there will be a number of townships that will be been listed, such as Mamelodi in Pretoria, Soshanguve also in Pretoria, Midrand, Ivory Park in Johannesburg, Alexandra in Johannesburg, Mitchell's Plain and the Cape Flats in the Cape, Kwamashu and Mlazi, where this Nyaope and other forms of drugs are just making hell in the society and indeed consuming our young people. Whether they call it Wunga or they call it Nyaope or they call it Tig in the color townships, it's the same drug because there's a mixture of Dacha, heroin, red poison, and also the ARVs tablets that were given to the people who are affected by HIV and AIDS. They just take them and steal them, rob them of those particular elements. So now they are now becoming the source of crime in many communities also. Hence the violent behavior by young people all of a sudden, either in protest or in other civil protests or strikes. You find young people, when you look at the pictures on television, that are of young, and then you can then see that they are seized by some elements, and therefore the drugs are just easily available in society, and that's what we want to clean out of society. And those townships will indeed be visited by high-powered delegations, ministers, deputy ministers, the president and the deputy president will also be championing in the campaign, and as and when they are announced where they are going, we'll then let you know.
Just on another issue, Deputy Minister, earlier I had a chat with Yeshen Pillay of the NYDA, and we understand that you were in fact disgusted at the behavior that they showed by not pitching up in Parliament to account. And his explanation to me was that it was an issue of miscommunication, nothing more. And I put it to him, of course, that it sounds like an excuse. What would be your response to that?
Well, it was a disappointing day. I was there in Parliament myself, and none of the executive members showed up except for the CFO. The CEO was not there, the executive chair was not there, the deputy was not there. Indeed, there was confusion as to who should be coming to that meeting. But I told them that Parliament has long taken a resolution that when we present reports to them, we appear before the committees. Minister, deputy minister, where possible, should be present, even if they are not demanded always. However, the accounting officers, it's a must. And the executive chair and the deputy executive chair and the CEO have no excuse of not coming. Either of the three should have been there, if not all of them. But they must really respect the parliamentary processes, because Parliament, that's where we account, that's where we are able to give answers to society that have been asked by honorable members. And they will be giving an apology and then giving an explanation on next week Friday when they appear at the Portfolio Committee. And I hope that apology is a reasonable one so that the members of the Portfolio Committee will be at ease to accept it.
Siyabulela Tatu Obabela for joining us this afternoon. Thina sisuka apha eMadadeni siyibuyisela ku-Ayanda kwelinye icala icolleague yam siyabulela ngoba ubukhe wadibana nathi namhlanje wayinxalenye yalo mcimbi.
Yolisa, thank you very much. And I tell you, throughout the day, it has been so encouraging. Speaking to young people who are here, who've come to celebrate Youth Day. I'm here at the Pelindaba Sports Ground, and just to listen to some of their stories and to hear what some young people are doing in their communities. And I have two young girls. They've come all the way from Paul Petersburg. They tell me that they are youth ambassadors, and I'm just going to get from them what exactly are youth ambassadors and the work that they are doing for their communities. Sisangibonga kakhulu nje isikhathi sakho usuka le ePaul Petersburg ungixoxela ukuthi u-youth ambassador enzani
Youth ambassador is a program from Premier of Kids and Mr. Honorable Zolim Kize. We employed to ensure that the youth of the community actually communicate with the State Departments. Like, if we take the youth who are not have ID books, then we take to the Department of Home Affairs, then they sort them out. As well as the youth who are disabled, who are not able to walk, we will take them to the Department of Health and give them their wheelchairs. Yeah.
Also, the day is about encouraging the youth to keep away from drugs. Ngabe mhlambe izinto eziphathelene nezidakamizwa ekuthenini ikhuthaze intsha ukuthi ayiyeke idakamizwa enye izinto ezenziwa ama-youth ambassadors.
Yona nto enye esiyenzayo njengama-youth ambassadors ukususa i-youth kuma-drugs, sikwazi ukuyikhuthaza ukuthi instead of ukuthi idla ama-drugs, iphuze utshwala, ingabe ingenzani ngaphandle kokwenza leyo nto. Siphuma ama-clubs, idlala amabhola, all of clubs nje singaba yini iform club noma ngabe ukuthi as youth nina ningenza group yini ukuthi nizakhele imali rather than nizolinda uhulumeni ukuthi anikeze umsebenzi.
And nibona intsha ikhuthazele lo msebenzi eniwenzayo njengoba uthi niyihlanganisa bayaphuma ngobuningi babo ukuthi babe ingxenye yalezi zinto enizenzayo.
Yeah, bayaphuma bona bakwenze babe nathi uma kumele kube khona into abazenzayo, but then-ke i-youth iba nabo ukuvila kodwa nje iyakwenza kona, iyayicommit ekutheni iyeke lokho abakwenzayo benze ku-right.
Okay, well, from the youth ambassadors who are here, who are going out, and we see that they're doing an amazing job in their communities, rallying together the youth, be it drugs, be it relating to social issues. They're going out and doing their bit to develop and empower fellow young people in their communities. And I suppose not just for the young people, but for the adults and people who are living amongst their communities. But we also have some of the rural core, the youth rural core. Earlier on, we spoke to the program director, Mr. Anton van Staden. But here they are now. I'm just going to chat to them how the program, how being part of this program has empowered their lives. Sangibonga kakhulu nje mhlawumbe ke ungene kanjani kulolu hlelo leli lama rural youth core.
Igama lami nguphindile waKwaNtulu, ngiqhamuka kuZululand district ePaul Petersburg. Ukungena kwami kule program kwakufuneka i-youth engasebenzi enomatric ngaba womunye owaya kuma interview ngakhona ukuselectwa ukuze ngiyomela i-youth Port Petersburg engasebenzi. Ukuqala kwami kule program kungisize kakhulu. Ngenkathi ngiqala ngiye ngaqala ngathathwa ngasiwa kwa-SAN UDF Kimberley for training for skills, discipline, work hard, be strong. After that, now I'm going to the FET.
Okay, well, as you can see, youth, be it the rural youth corps, be it the youth ambassadors, young people going out to develop their communities. I'm going to hand things back now. It's getting a bit rowdy and noisy. There's so excitement here from the young people. I'm going to take things back now to the studio in Johannesburg, to Vuyo.
No, just play.
June 16 tends to be focused on Soweto as if the people of Soweto were the only people involved in the struggle. Now, consequently, there is a slight resentment from other townships, because they see everything is focused on Soweto, which includes services, development and so on, So I don't really think 1976 today is commemorated correctly in a manner that we can say, those of us who are in the forefront of it, can say the new government, for example, the new institutions are actually doing something that may not necessarily be 100% enough, but we understand that, but we are in the right direction, particularly when it comes to the youth.
What is the significance of June 16 for you?
Well, for me, the significance is we should treasure what those teenagers back then fought for, because they fought for us, they fought for a better future for us, and we should do the same by fighting for a better future for the next generation of children that's coming. Because if this, like this issue now, if this can bring us down, and who's gonna be the next presenters, who's gonna be the next presidents, who's gonna be the next doctors, because we're not gonna can do it, we're not gonna have the right education for it, we're not gonna go and can study for it. So we just have to build a better future for ourselves, so that our next generation can have a future, and they can build a future for their next generation.
June 16 is about looking back, looking at those heroes who changed the course of history and who helped give us the better South Africa that we are enjoying today. What should be our role? What is it that we can do to make sure that we follow in the footsteps of those young people who came before us?
We should cherish South Africa, because those youngsters did their utmost best for a great South Africa. Because looking back at those days, you couldn't go where you wanted to go. Understand? Yeah. So that's why.
Voices of young people who are affected by drugs and drug abuse are talking about their fears, their hopes, their feelings and aspirations. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's broadcast, and indeed you will do your part in helping this nation to fight this scourge of drugs and drug abuse. Well, from us, thanks very much for watching. Do remember that you have a role to play. Do remember that, just to share something very small with you, a few days ago, when our program Morning Live started doing these messages, 1,900 calls were made to the Crime Line Center. So please do your part. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.
Shabbat
salute you. Githi kuthanda sisebenzela lelizwe. Basebenzi mahlangana. I love you all.
Liam has